I'm your host, Eric Eisenberg. Welcome to Hero Blend number 54. In the weeks since Marvel and Sony's landmark announcement, we've been hearing tons of reports and rumors about Spider-Man's trip into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. On this week's episode, we're going to clear it all up and discuss 10 key things you need to know about the situation. Check it out. Welcome back, everyone. I am very excited to have once again with me on the show Mr. Mack Rawden from Cinema Blend.
Thanks for having me. It's going great.
So for those of you who are not familiar with the format of the show when Mack shows up, he's a bit of a comic book newbie. I think that's
I'm
fair
a
to
worse
say.
guest than everybody else. We're being honest.
It's not so much that you're the worst, is that you're just not as informed. But that leads to some very good questions that you have. You don't know much about this, so I'm here to provide some information. This week, I want to talk about the Spider-Man deal, because we talked about it a couple weeks ago with Sean, but I imagine there's still a lot of questions out there that people don't really know what's going on with this Sony Marvel deal, and I want to answer some of those questions. So, Mac, I believe you have 10 questions for me. Hit me with them.
I got 5 long ones and 5 short ones.
Okay.
I had to trim them down because I got a lot of questions.
Yeah, sure.
But
It's a big thing.
Alright, so I'm confused about... I think I know how the deal works, basically, which is that Spider-Man is in Marvel team movies and he's in solo movies with Sony.
Right.
Right?
But it's all within the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes. Yeah. So my question is, aren't they worried about... Isn't Marvel worried about Sony screwing up the solo movies? Mm-hmm. And Sony worried about... who is someone ultimately making all of these decisions to make sure that things are uniform?
Essentially what it is when Spider-Man came to Marvel, essentially what the deal was is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe gets to use Spider-Man. It gets to include him amongst like the ranks of heroes like Iron Man, Thor, and Hulk. But the deal is that Sony still basically maintains financial and creative control. But the thing is, though, is that Kevin Feige is serving as a producer on the 2017 Spider-Man movie that's scheduled. Basically, what it is it almost, while technically Sony seems to have creative control over Spider-Man, this deal wouldn't have been made unless they basically trusted, they had more faith in Marvel to do with Spider-Man what they couldn't. And that's essentially, I mean, there's no other reason why they would make that deal. So, essentially, they have creative control. However, previous producers like these guys Avi Arad and Matt Tolmach, who have done a lot of the direction of the previous 5 Spider-Man movies, really, they're getting a much more minimized role, and Marvel is now kind of stepping up to kind of the plate to almost replace them in a certain sense. Again, that's kind of unofficial, but that's kind of just the sensical nature of it. But yes, essentially what it is that Marvel doesn't really have to worry about Sony screwing anything up, basically because they're kind of with them every step of the way, and Sony trusts the guidance that Marvel's willing to provide.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So, all right. I've heard a rumor going around that, well, I think it's pretty confirmed at this point, that Spider-Man is going to be in Captain America 3.
Yes.
That is correct?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Okay, so how big of a role do you think he's going to have? Is this going to be a cameo situation, or is it going to be Hulk, Thor, Spider-Man?
Well, Hulk and Thor aren't going to be in Captain America, but I think essentially what we're looking at probably is not quite a cameo, but more of a limited supporting role. Essentially what it is that, I mean, the big thing blocking it is just the fact that this is happening so late in the process. Captain America Civil War has been in the works for months and months and months now, probably about a year. They had a lot of confidence in Winter Soldier. They pretty much knew that they were going to do Captain America 3. And essentially, the fact that Captain America 3 is now only a couple months away from production, they might not necessarily have a huge role for Spider-Man to play, so he might end up just kind of in a more supporting part. The contrast to that is that the Civil War comics, which came out in, I think 2006, I want to say, but it featured Spider-Man in a very key role. It had Iron Man and Captain America basically fighting over his soul. It kind of looks like Black Panther is going to be playing that part, but at the same time, we don't really know how Spider-Man's going to fit in, but if I had to estimate at this point, I'd say small to medium role that essentially sets him up for his 2017 solo movie.
Okay. All right. So I have heard that when he does have that 2017 solo movie, that we may see Iron Man in that movie. Yeah. Do you buy into that rumor? If so, why or why not?
Okay. I am iffy on that rumor. I'd say I probably lean more towards don't believe it. If not only because Marvel dealing with a contract extension for Robert Downey Jr. hasn't. I mean, it costs them money whenever they want to do that, and that's probably something that they don't necessarily want to deal with. And also, Spider-Man has his own expansive universe. You don't necessarily need Iron Man. I mean, it does create a connection between the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe by having Iron Man there. I don't necessarily think that it's needed. That being said, some suggested evidence towards him actually being in Spider-Man is that Robert Downey Jr. has actually talked about potentially taking more of a supporting role capacity within Marvel. I mean, he's playing a supporting role in Captain America: Civil War, and he said that maybe that's his place. Maybe that's how he can help out the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So there is that idea. At the same time, I'm a bit iffy on that rumor.
Okay. Okay, so I've heard that Spider-Man is not going to be an origin story.
That's the hope, yes.
But I've heard that it is going to be set in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take those both to be facts,
okay,
who are some characters we will see? Say who's 3 characters we probably will see, and 3 we probably will not see because of the timeline.
If I had to say 3 that we will see, I gotta probably go with the main triumvirate. Like, you have Gwen Stacy, Harry Osborn, and Norman Osborn. Those are 3 characters who are completely vital to the Spider-Man origin story, or not even origin story, but kind of the Spider-Man story in general. And they kind of help get Spidey's story to where it needs to be. Obviously, Gwen Stacy, and there is obviously the conflict with the Amazing Spider-Man movies just having done that. But I think as long as you don't treat it as an origin story, don't treat it as the first time we're meeting these characters, treat them as though Spider-Man has known these people for a long time. That is the way around it. If I had to pick 3 that we don't want to be in it, I guess by nature of Gwen Stacy being in it, I'd say no Mary Jane, simply because you don't really want to rush that. And I guess probably Lizard and Electro, if not only because you don't necessarily want to be repeating villains at this point, but those 2 also did not get the greatest reception from fans, and there are so many other Spider-Man villains that they could potentially use that you can go in an infinite number of directions. So I'm going to do a cop-out answer and say those 2
Okay, I'll take it. Alright, so I would say it's not an understatement to say the immediate collective reaction of people when it was announced that Marvel was going to be involved with Spider-Man was almost euphoria.
Yeah, no,
it was really hard to find anyone to say anything negative about this, right? But now that we've gone a certain amount of time and everyone has a cool head, are you 100% confident that Marvel is the right studio to help push this forward?
Yes. I think that's pretty much a declarative yes. I mean, part of it is just the fact that Sony has screwed up Spider-Man these past couple of years. I mean, it dates back to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. He didn't want Venom in there. Because they insisted he did, it ended up jumbling the whole mess. That extended into when Sam Raimi was developing Spider-Man 4 and ended up making it not happen. The fact that they thought the origin story was the best way to do it, only do the reboot just a few years. I mean, basically, it got to a point where you couldn't really trust the decisions that Sony was making with Spider-Man. But Marvel is where Spider-Man lives. That's his home. He started at Marvel Comics. Obviously, there's not really a competition in the game right now when you're talking about a studio that really understands its characters and what they mean on a mass scale right now than Marvel. And Spider-Man, they've surely wanted him to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for years and years. They know exactly who he is. Everything that we've heard from the Marvel camp about who Spidey is and why he would be important to the Marvel Universe is exactly what I want to hear. The idea of them, like you mentioned earlier, not doing an origin story, making him younger, because Spider-Man is a young character and he should be significantly contrasted in age with the rest of the Avengers. These are things that I love hearing, that I do want to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the future of Spider-Man. So yes, I think that Marvel is exactly where he needs to be.
Okay. Alright, I trust you. Just like you trust Marvel, I trust you.
Yeah, there you go.
Alright. Now these are the fast questions.
Okay.
Alright.
5 rapid fire. Let's do it.
All right. So, do you think the Spider-Man movies will be closer in tone to the Raimi movies or to the Webb movies?
Wow, that's a tricky question. I honestly almost hope that they go in a completely different direction. I want Spider-Man. I want Spider-Man movies to be insanely fun. I want them to be like daytime action. I want to see Spider-Man like. I think if I'm looking for a tone that I want them to strike, it's kind of the opening action sequence of Amazing Spider-Man 2, where Spidey is swinging through the streets and chasing after Rhino. That kind of fun, that kind of energy, that's really what I want out of Spider-Man. I'm hoping that's the case. Yeah, so, either, yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you feel bad for Andrew Garfield?
Yes, that I definitely do feel bad for. I thought Andrew Garfield... I think both Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, I thought both... I mean, she matters a little less because she died in Amazing Spider-Man 2. But I thought Andrew Garfield was a really good Spider-Man. I thought he... I mean, it's
Do you think this is not his fault?
Oh,
in
no.
terms of what happened with
No. I think everything is story-related with the failure of the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. But I thought... Andrew Garfield, I thought, was fantastic in the role. If there's any real kind of big loser in this situation, it is, unfortunately, him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One name. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Who is your pick for the new Spider-Man?
My pick. I'm going to say Freddie Highmore. He was a name that I kind of pitched when this whole business broke out. I wrote a feature about 10 actors who I'd like to see get the role. He's the right age. It'd be a bit weird to have the guy who's playing Norman Bates currently on television to also be playing Spider-Man, but he's a really good actor. He has that incredibly youthful face. He's very lanky, which is the kind of Spider-Man. It's always been the Spider-Man that I like to be drawn, kind of that skinny, nerdy dude. Yeah, he's physically, proportionally, and the age that I want Spider-Man to be.
His face, he looks like somebody that carries around secrets, too.
Yeah.
Even when he's happy, there's something behind those eyes.
That's right.
Okay. What do you think is the best Spider-Man movie that has been made so far?
Oh, I don't think there's any question that it's Spider-Man 2.
Not even close.
Not even close. I mean, it's got an incredible performance from Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus. Just the story of Peter Parker kind of struggling with his identity of Spider-Man and the meaning of with great power comes great responsibility and his failure to kind of accept it within himself. It hasn't been matched in Spider-Man. And frankly, it's not just the best Spider-Man movie. It's one of the best Spider-Man movies we've seen yet. Or one of the best comic book movies, I mean. Yeah, it's...
All right. The last question is by far the hardest of all. Oh. Because we're going to look back on tape on this in like 10 years. See how close you are.
Okay.
All right. The next Spider-Man hired, whether it's Freddie Highmore or whoever else.
Yeah.
How many movies will that Spider-Man appear in? Doesn't need to be solo movies. It can be in Marvel movies, in his own movies. How many overall before there's somebody else cast as Spider-Man?
Okay, well...
Or the franchise dies.
I will say, I mean, if I'm just going based on previous evidence, Marvel has a tendency of signing 6 picture deals with their actors, which is essentially 3 solo movies, 3 Avengers movies. As we're moving into the future, though, who knows how that could change? The fact that Spider-Man is going to be as young as he is, that could extend that could easily lead to many more Spider-Man movies. I'll say 8.
Okay.
I'm going to say 8. That's a lot of movies. That is a lot of movies that I'm betting on this Spider-Man for. Mack, do you have a better understanding of this Marvel-Sony deal, man?
I do. Thank you for clearing it up.
Absolutely, man. And thanks for being on the show. Great questions, as always. And everyone else, I will see you next week for some more awesome superhero discussion. Have a good one.